This high-flying Disfarers episode is the complete history of the iconic Dumbo the Flying Elephant attraction. Alright, so Dumbo first took flight with his feather across American movie screens in October of 1941. That means that less than 2 months before Pearl Harbor, there was a congenial big-eared elephant circling around the heads of Americans right before they found themselves entering World War II. It seems surreal, but it was actually the case. Now, I don't normally do this, but this episode is going to be covering both Disneyland's and the Magic Kingdom's Dumbo the Flying Elephant attractions. And that's because they're both so similar, I didn't see any way or reason to split them up into two separate entities. In fact, this iconic aerial carousel attraction is the only ride to be featured in all 6 of the Disney Castle parks. And there's little wonder why. There's something magical about it. It's old and yet fresh, straightforward and easily enjoyable. However, when the attraction was initially conceived, it didn't even have Dumbo. This Imagineer over here, Bruce Bushman, designed the attraction's cars, bafflingly, to be pink elephants.
Pink elephants?
So, Walt Disney himself stepped in and changed them to be gray Dumbos. And it makes a lot more sense because it's a lot more fun to soar with a title character that's supposed to fly than a pink elephant that for some reason looks like Dumbo but yet isn't, and they also didn't fly in the movie. I don't know what happened there with Bruce Bushman's take on this one. He had a lot of other outstanding ideas in his time. And then there was Dave Bradley's contribution, the owner of Bradley's Beverly Park in Los Angeles. This innovating entrepreneur collected old rides and attractions, and Walt partly used Bradley's park as an inspiration for Disneyland. Walt even hired Dave Bradley as a consultant for Disneyland from 1950 to 1955. Anyhow, Dave Bradley advised Bruce Bushman to allow kids to control the up and down mechanism of Dumbo. Bradley's experience taught him, quite correctly, that kids typically don't get to exercise much control in their lives, but to have control on an attraction where they also experience the exaltation of flying would be extremely popular. It's also very simple, and that always works best, right? So then, sometime later, Disneyland opened to the public on July 17th, 1955. The Dumbo the Flying Elephant attraction was there, and by that I mean it was visible. People saw it. The attraction was supposed to be an opening day attraction, but things just didn't pan out for Dumbo. As you can briefly see here, the Dumbo the Flying Elephant ride was not in working order, but rather opened a month later on August 16th, 1955. People, videos, and sites, including entries in Wikipedia, like to state it was because of a flawed prototype situation. However, the real answer is that it was poor communication. The situation was that Disney wanted to make the Dumbo cars so they would look absolutely perfect. In the process, they came up with the idea to have the ears actually flap while they circled round and round, which really was an amazing idea. So these ear-flapping Dumbo cars were shipped to Disneyland a mere 3 weeks before opening day, and the hydraulic system, designed by Arrow Development, was crafted for each arm to carry 500 pounds. Now, when the already late cars arrived, Arrow Development immediately deduced that each car now weighed 700 pounds, despite the fact that an actual baby elephant weighs 200, but in any case, the mechanical arms just weren't designed to support that weight, and it understandably took time for Arrow Development to make proper adjustments. And that's your flawed prototype situation. But just to expound for a moment, and I hope I'm explaining this right, Arrow Development developed a lift system supposedly on the advice of a NASA engineer that used accumulators to balance the weight of the Dumbo cars, using part pressurized gas and part liquid. In theory, it should have worked. However, the extra weight of the cars, as well as all the jostling, caused a barrier problem between the hydraulic fluid and gas. So the pressurized gas would permeate into the fluid, and when the pressure was eventually released, the gas expanded, creating foam. Not just foam, but like brown foamy muck, and this also made for an unstable attraction. For a little while, Arrow left one of their employees, Paul Harvey, to skim this foam. And I'm not talking about Paul Harvey, the radio broadcaster.
Paul Harvey. Good day.
No, this Paul Harvey's job was what was referred to as quote-unquote milk the elephants several to many times a day of this foam, sometimes even between rides while it was tinkered. Essentially draining the system and putting in fresh fluid every day, 7 days a week, for several weeks. Aero Development was forced to strip the hydraulic systems and motors from the hinged ears to further reduce weight. Although Dumbo was flapping his ears during Wednesday's Anything Can Happen Day song in the first season of the Mickey Mouse Club, but I feel this was forgivable, albeit false advertising there. They may have thought at the time that the flapping ear concept was still salvageable. I'm not sure what else Aero did to get it to work. As it was explained to me, each of the arms are essentially engine hoists that rotate around the hub. The hoists, I should add, are on a spinning platform that is initiated and halted by a cast member. But yeah, how they got this already existing hydraulic system to carry whatever the cars weighed after losing as much weight as they could is beyond me. But they hammer the problem home, if only temporarily. After putting in all of this work, Aero Development and Disney decided it was best to just start over and create a functional attraction with no foam or milking required. And by November or December of 1955, the new Dumbo system replaced the original, this time with the addition of Timothy Q. Mouse. A remarkably uncontroversial figure outside of perhaps the fact that some people don't like that he holds a training whip. It depends which Dumbo ride you're talking about, but the parks have switched the whip out with a feather, then back to the whip. I found it difficult to keep track of what ride and which park had feathers, then whips, but I think it's safe to say that Timothy would never whip Dumbo, seeing as how they're both such great friends. But let's get back to Aero Development. In spite of all of the setbacks with Dumbo, Aero Development's dedication to get the job done correctly, including leaving Paul Harvey to skim the foamy muck over and over, seriously impressed Walt Disney. To the point that it said that this situation with Dumbo solidified Walt's partnership in using Aero Development into the future. The level of dedication to getting the job done, the level of quality they strove for, proved to Walt Disney that these were his kind of people. And in the decades following this moment, Aero helped create many astounding Disney attractions, not the least of which were the Matterhorn, Small World, and Pirates of the Caribbean. So in 1956, Dumbo was finally in good working order. 10 properly themed cars were spinning around 17 feet in the air, each run going for a minute and a half, though it always feels like longer. Everything was a success, even without the flapping ears. An interesting side note is that in 1957, Harry S. Truman decided to visit America's relatively newfound Disneyland. However, he declined to ride Dumbo the Flying Elephant because, being an elephant, he was therefore a symbol of the Republican Party. Sometime around 1963 to 1964, the hinged ear Dumbos were switched out with new, though maybe not so improved, cars. It really is a shame that guests never got a real chance to experience the ride with the flapping ears. But anyway, these new Dumbos were pretty sleek. And it's additionally neat that one of the original hinged Dumbo ear cars made its way into a collection of the National Museum of American History. So yeah, everything had come together and the attraction was riding high for some time. So popular, in fact, that it was added to the Magic Kingdom in 1971 as an opening day attraction. For real this time. Now, since Dumbo had his own set of ear problems in the beginning with Disneyland, I guess it's not too surprising to learn that it initially had another set of problems at the Magic Kingdom. First off, Dumbo didn't have a hat. None of the cars had hats. Look at them. 10 hatless Dumbos circling round and round to nowhere. No Timothy Q. Mouse either. I don't know if they just forgot him or what. But Dumbo eventually got his hats a year later, and a Timothy Q was added as well. I tried to find the name of whoever dropped the ball there, but it's as the old saying goes, victory has 1,000 fathers, failure's an orphan, something like that. They're variations. It's the same reason I can't find any names on which Imagineers reimagined the Journey into Imagination attraction in 1999, but I'll unearth their names sooner or later. I'm sure their hearts were in the right place, I'm just really curious. Meanwhile, back at Disneyland in 1983, the Dumbo attraction was moved to its current location, replacing what was once Skull Rock Cove. This version of the attraction lasted until 1990 when 2 minor incidents occurred within the span of a year involving the collapse of support arms. Deciding to lean on safety and the fact that there was a whole brand new, larger, freshly painted 16-car Dumbo attraction waiting to be installed at the yet unopened Disneyland Paris, Disneyland and Anaheim just took it for themselves. Disneyland Paris, of course, had to have another set made for themselves, but it was nonetheless up and running by its opening day. So that's how Disneyland came to be the first Dumbo the Flying Elephant attraction to boast having 16 cars. Not to be outdone by Disneyland and Disneyland Paris, the Magic Kingdom moved up to 16 cars in 1993. And then in 2012, during the whole new Fantasyland and removal of Mickey's Toontown Fair for the Storybook Circus renovation, Disney moved Dumbo to its current location, as well as adding a whole other carousel. Dual Dumbos, as it were. With water features much akin to Disneyland's Dumbo attraction, including the colorful lighting changes at night, but with more colors. Though Disneyland got the water feature much earlier, the Magic Kingdom couldn't add such aquatic ambience until it was moved, because the pipes would have gotten in the way of the famous Magic Kingdom utilidors. And in addition to these 32 circling cars, a new air-conditioned wait line was also added, complete with a super fun play area for kids to run around. They also added this nifty hidden Mickey at the Magic Kingdom as though it were made by elephant imprints, which I feel is fairly creative. Now, I couldn't find much in the way of information about the evolution of the intricate mechanics of the attraction, but I do have an anecdotal experience that sort of applies. Somewhere around the year 2000, I was in my late teens and riding in my Dumbo car and wondered what would happen if I just started flipping the control switch up and down like crazy. The result was me being thrashed up and down harder than you would think, even after I'd stopped messing with the controls. I screamed to no avail. My age and the fact that I was smiling in spite of my predicament probably caused cast members to think I was just being silly, which I was, but my car really had gone haywire. So, out of curiosity, I tried this again recently and everything worked great, as anyone would expect. When I stopped messing with the controls, the car stopped in proper sequence, so I'm not sure what happened all those years ago. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, over at Tokyo Disneyland, their Dumbo the Flying Elephant attraction is essentially as close as you can get to the original at Disneyland, including it having 10 elephants. And it's worth mentioning that Disneyland Paris's Dumbo is unsurprisingly much akin to California Disneyland's, other than the coloring being a bit closer to how it was in the late 90s. No big difference though, really. And Shanghai Disneyland and Hong Kong Disneylands are much like the others too. Really, other than the Magic Kingdoms being a bit more ornate with double the cars, they're all pretty fairly the same now, with only minor differences here and there. All told, the ride exemplifies it with the right theming and ingenuity. Nearly any idea can reach unprecedented heights. It's really not that different from so many other attractions around the globe, and yet the emotions it evokes run strongly among fans. Its popularity has even withstood the test of time without much in terms of highs or lows, ironically. As far as I could find, it's always been treasured by fans. It's practically a rite of passage with some families. I made this episode because of someone very special to me. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, learned some fun Disney stuff, and got something out of it. If you did, please hit like and subscribe, and comments of all kinds are always appreciated. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and Disfarers out.